This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. It's been another busy day on the trade war front. Donald Trump is delaying his 25% tariffs on some Canadian goods until April 2nd. He also announced a similar pause on tariffs affecting many imports from Mexico. But it only covers goods that fall under the existing North American trade deal. Trump again defended his tariff plan.
Companies and countries that have ripped off this country, our beloved USA, and they're not going to be ripping us off anymore.
The White House will still impose a 10% levy on potash that U.S. farmers import from Canada. It's another change in the punishing tariffs Trump announced Tuesday, after previously delaying them by a month. His actions have caused financial markets to sink and spread fears of the economic fallout from a trade war. Canada says it will hold off on the second round of retaliatory tariffs on U.S. products until April 2nd, but the $30 billion in counter tariffs already announced will remain in place. Now here in Manitoba, Premier Wab Kinew says the pause on U.S. tariffs is not good enough. That's why he says the government's countermeasures aren't going anywhere and the province may go further. We're joined by the CBC's Ian Fraze live in our newsroom. So, Ian, what's the province planning?
Well, the Premier is thinking of using Manitoba Hydro as a bargaining chip. The Crown Corporation has been ordered to review any new major purchases and export contracts of the electricity it ships to the U.S., and any new decisions would require cabinet approval. Kinew also told reporters, though, he may also look at existing contracts with U.S. buyers. He says hydro is one way the province can stick up for itself.
We need to use the areas where we have leverage to protect our jobs and to protect our country and to protect our province. And baseload power, electricity, is one of those areas where we have leverage.
And the PCs called out the government for not moving fast enough.
Shocking to me is they're just starting this review now. We asked during Hydro Committee 2 months ago for what their plan was going to be for Manitoba Hydro contracts to the U.S. The minister responded that he didn't talk in hypotheticals. We see premiers across the country, including Doug Ford, who's ready to go. He has the tools in his toolbox. Manitoba does not.
She was talking there about Doug Ford, the Ontario Premier. His province is planning to charge 25% more for the electricity it ships to the U.S. starting on Monday. Kinew wouldn't promise to do the same, but says he's regularly in talks with Ford.
So, Ian, Manitoba responded to tariffs this week by offering tax deferrals for businesses and pulling all American products off of Liquor Mart shelves. Those countermeasures, Kinew says, are staying in place. So why is that? Why isn't the province pulling those away again?
Yeah, Kinew says the threat of these tariffs are just a giant cloud hanging over customers and investors when they're making their decisions.
We met with our U.S. Trade Council earlier today, and we heard the perspective from the ag industry, we heard the perspective from business leaders. Even the threat of the tariff is having a real impact on potential investment and decision-making from customers on the southern side of the Canada-U.S. border. So long as that is hanging over our heads, a pause till April 2nd is not good enough.
Also, today the government introduced a Buy Canadian bill. This would require government to look towards Canadian suppliers, give them preferential treatment when making government purchases. This bill, of course, must pass. Brittany.
All right, thank you. That's CBC's Ian Fraze. Now, booze is big business. The maker of Jack Daniel's has responded to several Canadian provinces pulling U.S. liquor from those shelves. The CEO of Brown-Forman says it's worse than a tariff. Several provinces, including Nova Scotia, Ontario, Manitoba, and Alberta, have removed American-made booze from liquor stores in recent days. Now, last year, the U.S. exported $300 million worth of spirits to Canada. Wine exports totaled $422 million, and beer was worth $41 million. Canada accounted for about 1% of Jack Daniel's total sales last year. So while Manitoba may not be budging on booze and retaliatory efforts, other stores say they don't have the same luxury and can't afford to pull products from south of the border. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, it's been a challenge for them to navigate the trade war.
A few more years in bottle isn't going to make this particular wine a whole lot better than it is now.
With more than $250,000 of U.S. wines in stock, the Porium's co-owner, Scott Holden, has been scrambling to navigate the trade war between the U.S. and Canada.
Unfortunately, what we have in terms of as being a small business owner now is that we actually have quite a bit of product in-house here that we've paid for that we can't just sit on.
Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries has stopped selling U.S. products to private wine stores. Unlike provincially run liquor marts, the Porium has left U.S. stock on shelves, despite being asked to remove it. Instead, they've slapped a reverse 25% tariff or discount on these products in an effort to sell off existing inventory.
I think we'll become less dependent on California and, and some of the other U.S. Areas for wine growing if this continues, for certain, because we won't bring anything further in.
At this Winnipeg grocery store, alternatives for American food staples aren't always an option. Still, shopper Chris McCormick and her husband have been making an effort to keep U.S. products out of their basket.
I'm angry, of course, like probably everybody else is. And like you say, because there's only the two of us, it's not, we can handle it better.
Food fair owner Munther Zeed isn't pulling any U.S. products from the shelves, but says he'll follow the lead of customers. If they're not buying a certain product, he won't reorder it.
Store owners, like grocery stores, to take off all the U.S. products off the shelf, that's already paid for it. I mean, what do you do with that? Throw it out?
While he hasn't noticed a big price impact yet, Zeed says Canadian counter tariffs could drive up costs.
These are wines that are meant to be.
For business owners, the back and forth tariff battle and the uncertainty is causing a lot of unnecessary stress.
But I think we're in this for the foreseeable future.
While he will sell his existing stock, Holden supports the province's decision to pull U.S. booze, and he says customers may have to try wines from elsewhere, at least for now. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, as the flip-flop continues, what isn't changing is the push by businesses to keep looking for local suppliers and buyers. CBC's Zubina Ahmed reports.
Awesome. There we go.
Packing up the next set of sustainably sourced soaps. Winnipeg mother and son duo Ildiko and Bela Garmati are the founders of Mermaid Cove Cosmetics. 28% of the orders over the past weekend was sent to customers in the U.S. While they manufacture in Canada, most of the packaging materials are from the States. Bela Garmati says they're now shifting their strategy to support local.
We're going to be sourcing our packaging locally within this city. So we're just shifting as a business and trying to be adaptable. Things are changing daily, so we're just trying to stay on top of it as best we can.
3 of Mermaid Cove's products were in the nominee gift bags at the annual Academy Awards on March 2nd. Garmati says their business took off since then, but might see a downfall later.
We know that with regards to expanding our business, this is going to impact that in terms of expanding down south.
Michelle Leclerc owns a local kombucha brewery, Wolseley Kombucha. She says their packaging will be affected too, as all of the bottles come from the U.S.
Grab-and-go bottles are probably about, I would say, 40% of our business, and margins are tight. So if it goes up 25%, that's eating 25% of our bottom line for that product.
Leclerc says bottle orders are worth thousands of dollars. They might look at suppliers from China or Mexico to keep that cost low.
The only thing is sourcing directly from China. Typically the minimum order quantity is a lot, so we might have to look at getting some more storage to store all the extra bottles.
Christine Marasti, owner of Denny Cree Designs, says they export around 3% of the products to the US. And it is the blankets that are most in demand there. She also imports regalia accessory kits, purses and bags from the US.
I could potentially let go of lines of products that we already carry and then maybe start purchasing something different, something local.
Marasti says it's possible she will lose her customers across the border. She'll know the impact on her bottom line within 6 months. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Another day of rinse and repeat really across the province. Another above seasonal day for many of us. Seeing a little bit of cloud cover on satellite and radar right now. And out of this radar picking up a few flurries, particularly north of Winnipeg into the Interlake. I think we have a chance of seeing some of that into the Red River Valley as we get into the overnight hours. Tonight, -2 in Winnipeg today, beating expectations, a little bit warmer than expected. 0 in Brandon, -10s. You can really see where that jet stream cuts across the province right now, and that is going to fuel a few more systems that could bring us some flurries as we get through the next couple of days, and for some of us even some accumulating snow a little bit further north. So -12 tonight in Winnipeg, winds lighten up as we get through the night once again. Again, that chance of a few scattered flurries through the overnight hours. Looking at a partly cloudy sky first thing in the morning, -11 in Winnipeg. Again, winds staying fairly light tomorrow. Rinse and repeat. We'll do it again tomorrow with a high of -4 in Winnipeg. Some cloud builds in. More on that when I come back.
An Osborne Village lounge has lost its liquor license after a shooting last month. A 29-year-old man was taken to hospital in unstable condition in early February after he was shot in the Moonlight Lounge around 4:20 in the morning. The Liquor, Gaming and Cannabis Authority of Manitoba says it issued an immediate order to suspend its license. It says it's working with law enforcement on the matter now. The 48-year-old owner of the bar can appeal within 21 days of the order. In the meantime, police say he was there during the shooting and has been charged with obstruction. A 33-year-old has also been charged with assault and aggravated assault. A 19-year-old driver who killed a cyclist on Wellington Crescent has been sentenced to 3 years behind bars. Beckham Severite pleaded guilty to dangerous driving causing death in the crash that killed Rob Jenner. Jenner was 61. Severite was going 3 times the speed limit and took off after the crash last June. He's been given credit for the time he's already served, putting his remaining sentence at just over 22 months, which means he will spend it in provincial jail and avoid federal prison. Jenner's death sent shockwaves through the city's cycling community. 4 years after Jana Williams's remains were found outside a Winnipeg building, there's still little known about her death. It's a homicide that has no arrests and has her family still searching for answers. Her family and friends gathered last night walking south along Main Street and Inkster Boulevard. It would have been her 33rd birthday. Her remains were found outside an apartment building on Alfred Avenue in 2021. Her family says the mother of 3 was expecting another child at the time of her death. Jana's mother feels her daughter has been forgotten by police.
I want some peace and I want closure. I want justice for my daughter.
Police ruled Jana's death a homicide in 2021, but her mom says it's been years since she last received an update on the case. CBC News has reached out to police, but have yet to hear back. At least 65 workers who look after children and young adults staying in shelters have been given pink slips. Manitoba's Families Minister says layoffs at Métis and Michif Child and Family Services are tied to labour bargaining. The Manitoba Métis Federation blames the 2 levels of government for not providing proper funding. The province says it's injected millions more into CFS operations. An emergency agreement is in place so children in care will not be affected by any of those layoffs. Well, it's a story more than 70 years in the making. Young ladies were chosen across the country to have an experience of a lifetime, attending the coronation of Queen Elizabeth. Now, in their late 80s, they retrace their steps, meeting a new monarch, King Charles, all recorded in a new documentary titled The Coronation Girls. CBC's Felicia Adam has more.
This is quite a crowded photo.
It's a memory Estelle Suarez keeps close to her.
We're all wearing the same outfits, the same hats, the same red purses, which made us also sort of stand out.
Standing on the deck of the Empress of France, the then 17-year-old had no idea the trip across the Atlantic to see the coronation of Queen Elizabeth would change the rest of her life.
I think this is me right over here.
They were called the Weston Girls, after Garfield Weston, a Canadian businessman who sponsored their 7-week trip. The group of 50 were all from small towns, picked by their high schools. Suarez, who grew up in Ottawa, had only ever been to Montreal.
My life would have been very different. I think I wouldn't have had such a larger view of the world if not for this trip. But little did we know that it would lead to these lasting friendships, now over 70 years, and still going on.
Now 89, Suarez had the chance to be 17 again. With some of the group, she went back to the UK, part of a documentary titled The Coronation Girls. This time around, they got to see another monarch.
Oh my Lord. Do we stand? Yes.
Douglas Arrowsmith is the creator of the documentary, a story he says had to be told.
It's a celebration of friendship. It's about being 17 again. It shows friendship in action.
It was like a fairy tale.
The documentary airs on PBS later this month. Arrowsmith hopes the film can be premiered throughout Canada soon.
This speaks to the friendships we made both as young women and now as older women. It's a family photo.
Things have changed for Suarez since 1953. She now has 4 kids and 6 grandchildren. But one thing has continued to be a constant: the friendships. Ones that take her back to being 17, standing on Oxford Street, watching the Queen's carriage go by.
It was magic.
Felicia Adam, CBC News, Winnipeg.
I love that.
That'll be a lot of fun.
Very, very cool to relive it all, go
Exactly.
back that many years later and meet her son.
A second opportunity of a lifetime.
Well, not an opportunity of a lifetime coming up with this weather. Not
No.
anytime soon.
I mean, we are looking at temperatures staying above seasonal for the next few days here in the south at least, but then things kind of change around a bit. We're looking at a return to more seasonal conditions in the south and some substantially colder conditions for parts of northern Manitoba. So enjoy the warmth.
Yeah.
I mean, it does come with a bit of a trade-off, which I'll get into here. I'm going to start with our upper-level winds tonight. Starting big picture, and you can see where the jet stream kind of cuts right across the prairie provinces here, from northern Alberta through central Saskatchewan into southern Manitoba. And again, like we saw last week, along this jet stream path, we're going to see some rounds of instability, a parade of systems, if you will, as we get through the next few days here. Into northern sections, you can start to see the beginnings of some of that colder weather starting to move in. And that's what's coming into the long range. So as we get into Friday, you can see we still, across southern Manitoba, do remain barely on the warm sector of this jet stream. But as we get into the weekend here, you can start to see our pattern shifting. So southern half of the province above seasonal into Sunday. The northern half, though, you can start to see that polar jet, that polar vortex start to slip a little bit further south. And that will feature into much of the province as we get into the early part of next week. Before we get there, though, a few things to keep on the radar here. First, a weak burst of instability pushing across central Manitoba, so the Parkland into Lake Manitoba. I think even into the Red River Valley, we have a chance of a few scattered flurries into the overnight hours tonight. Otherwise, mainly cloudy. Blink and you miss it. By tomorrow morning, back into the sunshine for most of us here. And we can expect, I think, a dusting of snow for some of us first thing in the morning. Into Friday, we see system number 2 pushing through later in the evening hours for much of central and eastern parts of the province. Again, I think this does have a chance of bringing us a few scattered flurries into the Red River Valley. So the next couple of mornings, keep in mind that we could be waking up to a dusting of snow. And more importantly, that dusting of snow covering some of that ice that has frozen over as we go through this freeze-thaw cycle. As we get into Saturday, another system pushes through, following the same track. This one, for the most part, missing southern Manitoba, but does bring with it, I think, a little bit of snow to northern Manitoba. So that first wave pushes through, brings maybe a centimeter or two to the Riding Mountain region into Dauphin. The rest of us really a dusting, but then as we push into Saturday here, you can see some of this total here in that 2 to 4 centimeter range for places like Norway House, into Barons River. So still a little bit of snow yet to come for some of us, but then our pattern really changes in behind that. So waking up tomorrow morning a little bit more seasonal than it was this morning. Minus 11 for Winnipeg, minus 13s and minus 12s back to the west, and minus 18 into Kenora first thing in the morning. We get to minus 4 tomorrow, jumping up above seasonal, Brittany, into next week. And then on Tuesday, here's where that pattern change starts to happen and returning to more seasonal conditions.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, there isn't a lot of snow left on the ground in Winnipeg. We have more to come right after this. Stay with us. The federal government has reached a deal with the provinces to let alcohol flow more freely across the country. The move is part of a host of changes to improve internal trade. As Olivia Stefanovich reports, the goal is to make Canada's economy more resilient to withstand the U.S. tariffs.
Outside a liquor store in Ottawa, excitement is building over the possibility of getting more choice from other provinces.
I think it's a great idea. I think it should be encouraged.
It should have been done a long time ago. It's ridiculous. This is Canada.
Sometimes it takes a kick in the pants like we've just had.
In the face of U.S. tariffs, domestic trade barriers are coming down.
We have our elbows up because of 25% Trump tariffs, and we are all unified around the table. That is unprecedented.
The provinces finally improving access to Canadian alcohol across the country.
We look forward to selling our wine to Ontarians and Quebecers and Nova Scotians and Newfoundlanders and the proud people of PEI. Right across the country, there's lots for them to enjoy here.
It would be a great thing if they did it. Do I believe that they'll do it? 5%.
Skepticism, though, remains. It's unclear if provinces will remove markups on Canadian booze from outside of their jurisdictions.
Why should I in BC be treated as a foreign winery in Alberta, Ontario, Quebec?
Or whether vintners will no longer be required to change their packaging when they sell in different markets.
The font must be this big, the label must say this, the alcohol must be in this position, the barcode must be this format.
In the coming weeks, the provinces are expected to hash out the fine details.
My optimism is palpable. The importance of this topic, of delivering up to $200 billion back to the Canadian economy without going through Donald Trump, is incentive.
The federal, provincial, and territorial governments are also working towards a common credential recognition plan, so professionals in one part of the country can work in another part of Canada more easily. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
As Justin Trudeau counts down his days as Prime Minister, he was asked about the latest crisis he's facing as the country's leader. Here's his candid exchange with reporters.
Your Foreign Affairs Minister yesterday called all of this a psychodrama. How do you characterize it?
Thursday. I've had 10 years of Donald Trump won, historic, once-in-a-century pandemic, inflation crises, war in Ukraine as Russia returns to war in Europe, as the Middle East is facing extraordinarily difficult situations. These have been complicated times. This is the job I signed up for. This is the job I will continue to do until the very last moment I'm doing this job. And it comes with the territory to be steady and strong for Canadians.
You seem to get pretty emotional about it. Thanks for leading it.
This has been the honor of my life, serving Canadians.
It's an extraordinary spy saga that originated in Canada. A teen from BC is serving prison time in Poland after being recruited as a Russian agent. His family says he was allowed to leave Canada despite being on the country's intelligence radar. And they believe he was targeted because of his military ties. Jonathan Gatehouse has the exclusive details.
Yeah, it's hard. You can't do anything for your kid.
The worry comes in waves for Andelaine Nelson. She'd only recently reconnected with her son, Laken Pavan, marveling at how her little boy had become a lanky Army reservist. Then he went backpacking in Europe, and Nelson received an earth-shattering call.
I was told that Laken had been arrested and charged with espionage.
Polish court files say Pavan went from Vancouver to Moscow and then Russian-occupied Ukraine last April to volunteer for an aid organization. Instead, he ended up being recruited by Russian intelligence. On May 21st, he landed in Warsaw with orders to spy on the Polish military. His espionage career ended hours later, after he got drunk in a hotel bar and confessed to police. He's now serving a 20-month sentence.
He turned himself in. He doesn't belong in a Polish jail.
Lawyer John Phillips is advising the family.
This was a troubled kid. He came from a broken home.
He was 17 and being manipulated.
The family says CSIS and the RCMP had Lakin on their radar before he left. Neither agency would confirm or deny that.
This is exactly the failing of the Canadian system and the Canadian intelligence and police network. They should have shut this down in Canada, but instead he's now suffering in a prison.
This intelligence expert says Russia is recruiting more spies than ever before, choosing quantity over quality.
Russia places very little value on the people that it recruits. It treats the assets with as little value as it treats its own conscripts. They are disposable.
It's not clear if Pavin was targeted for his military ties. The RCMP and multiple government agencies declined to answer questions about the case. What we do know is Global Affairs is talking to Polish authorities and that his family hopes Lakin will be home soon. Jonathan Gatehouse, CBC News, Toronto.
Ottawa is moving to crack down on what are known as forever chemicals, substances in everything from clothes to cosmetics that can do damage both to the environment and your health. Mike Crawley reports.
Miriam Diamond's research has shown just how widespread forever chemicals are, from food packaging to cosmetics to school uniforms.
It's like spraying Scotchgard on your kid.
Forever chemicals got their nickname because they linger in the environment for so long. In places where they've leached into the water supply, higher rates of cancer and infertility have been found.
It goes even in our blood and through the placenta to our kids, and probably with an effect on the next generation and the generation after that.
They're more formally called PFAS, short for per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances. Canada is now declaring the bulk of them to be toxic, paving the way for restrictions.
It's an unprecedented approach since we're regulating the entire class of PFAS and not just one substance, one molecule at a time.
But the move doesn't actually ban the use of any of these chemicals, merely opens the door to a ban eventually.
The measures that are being proposed are simply not sufficient. The government could be enacting restrictions right away on those products.
There's a long road ahead to get these substances out of products and out of our economy. So this is just really a first step.
I certainly share the views that by some that we should try and go faster, and we are trying to go as fast as we can.
The first substance the government will consider restricting, firefighting foam containing PFAS.
Other places in the world are moving away from it and are moving away from it quickly. Alternatives are available.
Several U.S. states are far ahead of Canada in restricting forever chemicals. California and New York have moved the furthest, banning PFAS in clothing since the beginning of the year. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Trump has issued what he calls his last warning to Hamas to release the remaining hostages being held in Gaza. His threats come as sources reveal the U.S. is holding secret talks with the militant group, breaking a long-standing diplomatic taboo. Sasha Petrusik has more.
An envoy from U.S. President Donald Trump is holding secret meetings directly with Hamas, the militant group from Gaza. Egyptian and Qatari mediators are also involved, and an Egyptian source told Reuters news agency that things are going relatively well. Now, this goes against decades of U.S. policy, which said that the U.S. would not negotiate directly with groups it considers terrorist organizations. It also goes against what Trump seems to have been saying on social media. He said Hamas is sick and twisted, and he threatened that if they didn't release all the hostages now, not later, there will be hell to pay. Now, Israel did echo those same threats.
Hamas should be under no doubt whatsoever that they are running out of road. Indeed, they have run out of road. The president has made clear that they need to release the hostages right now.
As for Hamas, it said the only way to do that is to stick to the original ceasefire deal, one that would see the hostages released in exchange for the end of the war and for Israeli troops pulling out of Gaza. Instead, Israel has proposed an approach that would see the hostages released in stages, but would not see the war end necessarily or Israeli troops pulled out of Gaza. Israel is pressuring Hamas by stopping aid deliveries into Gaza. That prompted European representatives at the UN to issue a statement.
We call on Israel to abide by its obligations under international law and to allow and facilitate the safe, unconditional, massive and unhindered delivery of humanitarian aid at scale.
In Gaza, Palestinians are digging through the rubble, trying to find lost family members. They also say that these threats from Trump are not the way to end the conflict and solve the problems. Instead, the U.S. should be putting more effort into negotiation. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
South Korean fighter jets have accidentally dropped bombs in their own territory during a military training exercise. 15 people were injured, 2 of them seriously. Several homes were reportedly destroyed. A church was also damaged. It happened during a joint live fire exercise with U.S. forces. Officials say a pilot entered wrong coordinates for a target site, and 8 bombs from 2 jets fell. Outside the shooting range, residents have long complained about the proximity to civilian areas. All live fire exercises are now suspended across the country. Tackling financial barriers so kids can play. Coming up, we'll hear how a grant for a local youth football club could help keep kids in the game. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Stay with us. Some kids in the North End are looking forward to having more access to sports thanks to some new funding. Shanley Vidal has the details.
While football might be on a winter break right now, there's already one team that's scored a touchdown. I'm Shanley Vidal, and I'm here at the North Winnipeg Nomads Football Club. The club is one of 3 recipients of the NFL Forward Pass. The $25,000 grant from NFL Canada is going to help grow the sport in Winnipeg by removing financial barriers.
My name is Stacey Kewen. I'm the president of the North Winnipeg Nomads. I also coach the U14 Pee Wee team. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know that we actually applied for the grant. It was done by one of our parents. And then when I found out, it was a little shock and surprise at the same time, and a little bit of excitement as well. We're going to use it to help kids get on the field as far as registration fees and that kind of thing. That was my head coach.
Kewen joined the club in 2015 when his son started playing. Now he's helping coach boys and girls on and off the field, from ages 8 all the way up to 23.
Over the years, I've seen kids and parents come to us, and football has been a real change in their lives. It builds confidence and self-esteem, and they make friends where, you know what I mean, in the past maybe they weren't the most social person, but it forces them out, and with the team environment and the family bonds that we form, it changes kids for the better. Are you excited about this year?
Yeah. Calder Weeb is 11 years old and has been playing for 3 years. His favorite position is quarterback. He grew up with a love of the sport because his dad played it. Now his older brother and younger sister are also players.
Just runs in our family and it's fun. Getting to run around and getting exercise.
What is your favorite part about when you're playing against other teams?
Getting to kick their butts.
How does that make you feel knowing that other kids like yourself are going to be able to play this sport and maybe they wouldn't have been able to otherwise?
It makes me happy because I love football and I hope other kids do too.
Well, last year we had 126 players for the MMFA season. I would like to see 200, 300 kids, you know what I mean, playing over the next couple of years. Football has been growing over the last couple of years, especially since after COVID. I'd like to see that grow again. You know, like football, like I said, is the best sport in the world, and kids learn a lot, and it's the sport that's going to help them develop that. It's the ultimate team sport. It takes everybody doing their job, everybody working together to be successful, and it really creates a family environment.
Go Nomads!
The North Winnipeg Nomads Football Club will be receiving that grant money this spring, along with a tailgate party and a visit from the NFL. Shanley Vidal, CBC News, Winnipeg.
I liked Calder's answer, kicking their butts. That's always fun.
Yeah, it is.
Well, they're going to be able to stay outside a little later pretty soon because we're seeing it much lighter. There's even a little bit of lightness when we leave after the show now.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a lot brighter. Great for evening walks. If you're someone like me who likes to go for a walk after work, going to be great.
Those days are getting longer.
We have to lose an hour of sleep on Sunday, but I want to show you our sunset times because this is a bit of a hope on the horizon if you want to look at it that way. So tonight our sunset was at 6:19, but in a week from now, once we spring forward on March 9th, our sunset is already past 7:30 in the evening, and then look what happens as we get through the next couple of weeks. By the end of March, almost at 8 p.m. sunsets once again. So we are looking at some nice sunsets coming our way. You know, I like a good sunset photo, so this is going to be great. All right, taking a look at your dog walking forecast. Great day tomorrow for folks and pups like Piper to get out for a walk. Thank you, Laura, for sending this picture in. Please keep sending your pets to talkback@cbc.ca. I'd love to see them. So very similar day for your Friday that we saw today. -11 first thing in the morning. Winds fairly light tomorrow. South, maybe we see a couple of gusts up to 30, but really not much to speak of. Up to -4 in the afternoon, and maybe we even get to -3 by the evening, but we'll keep the high at -4 for the afternoon temperature for now. You can see where the jet stream really cuts through central Canada into the Great Lakes region. That's been fueling some of this instability that's been riding up from Texas, from the Gulf Coast, creating a pretty messy situation for into the Ottawa Valley in particular today, and into parts of Quebec Quebec, which are dealing with some snow on top of some rain that came yesterday. So bit of a messy situation to the east. A little bit of snow coming our way here in Manitoba as we head into the overnight hours. So chance of flurries into the Parkland region. That even extends, I think, a slight chance for places like Portage and Winnipeg. But generally, if you draw a line from Dauphin through the Narrows, Gimli into Eastman, this is where we have the best chance for a few flurries into the evening hours tonight. Minus 18 tonight. And Dauphin looking at temperatures in the minus 20s for northern Manitoba. Slight chance of maybe a flurry overnight into places like Shamattawa. Very slight chance into Gillam as we get into the morning hours. Then comes the next system. This brings a fairly good chance of flurries for Flin Flon, the Pas, into Grand Rapids, Norway House. Maybe you get a bit of a dusting as we head through the day on Friday. Temperatures getting to the minus single digits for many of us. Into southern Manitoba, rinse and repeat, mainly sunny skies. For the most part, looking at a bit of clouds starting to build in as we get into the afternoon hours, Brittany, and this ahead of another wave of snow coming our way as we head overnight into Saturday.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Winnipeg Muslims have already begun fasting for the holy month of Ramadan. It started on Friday and continues through till March 29th. Muslims break their day-long fast every evening at sunset, usually with family and friends, but also with others in the community. And this year, there's an added focus on others who may be hungry, not just here in Winnipeg and Manitoba, but around the world. Shahina Siddiqui is the Executive Director of the Islamic Social Services Association and joins me now. Hi, Shahina.
Hello.
Well, first off, can you tell me a little bit about what Ramadan means to you?
Ramadan is the 9th month of the lunar calendar when we fast from just before sunrise to sunset. It is the holiest month, the most sacred month in our lunar calendar. And it is, to me personally, is a time for a spiritual retreat while we are still engaged in the world and doing our usual business. It is a time to reflect on the last year, on our own deeds, on people that we have lost this year, to pray extra, to read the Quran. And so it's really a time of great reflection. It's a time to feel the hunger that, you know, we don't pay attention to how people who do not have food, the insecurity of it, how it impacts. So it really is a time of personal deep reflection.
We know there are so many people that go hungry here in Manitoba. 50,000 use the food bank every single month. And your association is just one of dozens of organizations across the country that's really taking that to heart right now and taking part in the Fast Feed Ramadan Food Bank campaign to combat hunger. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's an initiative of the National Council of Imams, and they reached out through the country asking every province to participate in organizations. So we took it on here, especially because our focus is on hunger in Winnipeg. We do give donations overseas and everything, but for us, looking after our neighbors is our first priority. And as we say, as the Prophet told us, you cannot sleep with a full stomach if your neighbors are hungry. And so we take this recommendation and this direction very seriously. As you said, we feel in this month the hunger, but we are fortunate enough to break it with a meal on our table at sunset. But there are many who may be going asleep hungry. And we will all be asked for it. I'll be answerable for it. What did I do as a person, as a family, as a community to ease that for many people? So this is why we are participating in it.
Shahina, does this year's Ramadan have any extra significance with what's happening around the world?
Absolutely. We are, at one point that we are happy, we are saying happy Ramadan, but we are also grieving. We are also concerned about there are Palestinian children, women and men who would be fasting and would not have food to break their fast. This is right now weighing on our hearts. every prayer is a prayer for peace and justice. Every night, every day, we are praying. But the Ramadan, the prayers bring hope to us as well, that the Creator is merciful and just, and the Creator will watch over all who are suffering in this world because of our acts. These are not divine decrees. This is what we do to each other as human beings, and that's our main focus in our prayer. So I just want all of you listening to please pray for peace, justice, and human dignity in our world.
Shahina, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Still ahead, Riley's back with a last check on our forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Well, if you're looking to get your hands on a rare piece of cinematic history, this is your chance. A private collection of classic movie posters is set to hit the auction block later this month.
This is Dwight Cleveland's poster collection, and his goal was to find posters that you can immediately view that give you like a synopsis instantly of the movie.
More than 500 posters spanning 125 years will go under the hammer on March 27th and 28th. The Wizard of Oz, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Sunset Boulevard, Moulin Rouge, all among the Golden Age Hollywood classics that are up for grabs. The big ticket item from the lot is an original 1933 King Kong poster. That's expected to fetch between $40,000 to $80,000 US. The collection will be on display in London until the 14th, before heading to the US to be auctioned off.
That's kind of cool. Very similar day tomorrow that we saw today, that we saw the day before. Yes, things pretty consistent. -4 in Winnipeg tomorrow. Some increasing clouds as we get later in the day. Wind, not much of a factor. Maybe some gusts up to 30 through the afternoon hours, but really nothing too much to write home about. Few flurries overnight into Saturday morning. Saturday, Sunday, Monday above seasonal for this time of the year. And this day on Monday with some clouds, chance of flurries signals a bit of a change as we get into the next few days here. This is when we see that cooler air starting to usher its way in. So -3 for Tuesday, which I mean is seasonal for this time of the year. -1 for Wednesday, and then we're back up above seasonal to +1 on the way for next Thursday under a mix of sun and clouds.
So Riley, I want to share a little bit of mail that I got today. Last week, I told you guys about taking part in I Love to Read Month. I went to Norquay School and got to speak to a few classes there, some grade 2s and 3s. Well, today I got all of these in an amazing package from Mr. B's class that were amazing, room 4. They sent me all of these drawings that they made. So we're going to turn the camera around here so you can get a better look at these. It's coming, don't worry. But we've got CBC logos.
Wow.
We've got over here this one. I think this is one of our sat trucks.
It's supposed to be a satellite truck.
Yeah, that we would have out there. And they said, you know, thanks so much for coming. So that one was from Elvin. I've got me at the studio desk here, which I thought was awesome. This one, I'm wearing some cat ears. Stay cool with some popsicles there.
Some fashion advice.
Yeah, I know, right? And this one, my ball gown. So maybe I'll wear that one tomorrow for a little Friday show. So I just wanted to say thank you so much to Norquay. It was such a delight. We love getting to come out into the community.
Envelope that you
I
got
know,
today,
it was great. We will be here back tomorrow night. Mr. B's class, thank you so much.